Welcome back to TAPAS and Stuff Productions, which, yes, as has been pointed out, adds up to Totally Awesome Productions and Stuff Productions. So glad you noticed. The logo you're looking at right now, by the way, was designed by my fiancée, Natalie, who has her own channel where she does travelogues. Link in description. It is Christmas Day. I mean, it's not Christmas Day right now, but I will release this podcast on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to those of you who had nothing better to do on Christmas Day than listen to me. My sympathies. Good to have you on board. I love you. Companions of the Dance Hall, Act 1, Scene 5. Regis leads the companions to Longsaddle, home of the Harples, a family of wizards known for their esoteric areas of study. First they meet the Long Riders, the elite guard of Longsaddle, one wielding a glaive guisarme and the other wielding a glaive guisarme glaive. One of the Harples comes to let them through the invisible fence. Harkle Harple, to be played in the style of Chester A. Bum. Because how else do you depict Harkle Harple, if not in the style of Chester A. Bum? I know Doug Walker has been disgraced as a creator for good reason, but that's no reason to pretend everything he did in the 10 years before that was hacky. Chester A. Bum was funny. Harkle leads the companions into the Ivy Mansion, and they sing the musical number, Harple Hill. Like with We Got This, I only have lyrics to this song, not much of a melody, only the notion that I want it to sound like Neil Diamond. And the topic of the song is explaining how wizardry, despite what you might have heard, is a harmless and fun hobby, all a rather on-the-nose allegory about misconceptions people have about Dungeons and Dragons. And I think the chorus goes like this. Come to Harple Hill, throw away all of your preconceived notions. Come to Harple Hill, feel the magical energy flow like an ocean. Something like that. If I have a melody for this song, it's only for the chorus. I have absolutely nothing for the verses. Over the course of the song, they meet Bella Harple, a nerdy and socially awkward wizard, and her dad, Delroy, patriarch of the Harple clan. Delroy leads them to the basement, which is one of the only times in the show any scenery is brought on stage. It looks like a classic gamer's basement. Delroy is familiar with the companions from tales of their deeds in Icewind Dale, and Bruenor tells him of their quest. Delroy produces a map of the Forgotten Realms, and Bruenor surmises that the hall must be somewhere in the infamous mountain range called the Spine of the World. Delroy suggests they go to Silvery Moon and enter the Vault of Sages, where they might find the knowledge that will narrow it down for them even more. The companions exit, and lights down on the Harples. We now come upon the fifth Team Salmon idea, the Keys and Kingdoms cartoon. As I said before, Keys and Kingdoms derives from an idea I had to reenact the entire Kingdom Hearts series in a universe that makes some fucking sense, where the fairy tale worlds actually cross over with one another, and there are epic musical numbers and beautiful costumes, but mostly it was a Star Kid-style musical parody, just on a huge scale, an entire series rather than just a single musical. And originally it was called Kingdom Butts, because if you take the Kingdom Hearts emblem, heart emblem, and you turn it upside down, you get Kingdom Butts. Keys and Kingdoms may be properly introduced to the world in the game books, or perhaps in the form of a computer RPG made with the program RPG Maker, which TAPAS may produce, or perhaps in this cartoon. CGI animation that looks not too dissimilar from the actual Kingdom Hearts series, but with a single unified art style, regardless of what world they're traveling to. A fairly realistic art style with just a little bit of quirk and character. I said realistic, weirdly. Realistic. Okay. We open where the Kingdom Hearts series opens. On a stained glass floor in a black void, where a boy who looks an awful lot like Sora appears. His name is Kakino, and he has a banjo strapped to his back and a thick country drawl. Words appear in the air to advise Kakino on his upcoming journey, but he's too intrigued by the floating words to pay attention to what they're saying. Eventually, the mysterious text-only narrator gets him to focus and make a decision. A sword, a shield, or a wand. Naturally, Kakino equips both the sword and the shield and tucks the wand into his belt. The narrator grudgingly accepts this, and continues to walk Kakino through a parody of the Kingdom Hearts 1 tutorial. Yada yada. Then he battles something big and hulking in what's a genuinely exciting tense battle scene, setting the tone for the series, in which fighting and its effects on people are depicted with some realism. Realism, if you will. And then Kukino wakes up on the beach of his island home, which needs a name, something to parody Destiny Islands. He plays a little country song on his banjo about wanting to explore the world beyond his island. Needs a tune, but I know the refrain goes, "This old world is too dang small." Once his verse is over, he's greeted by his friend Mizuka, a cute redheaded girl with a New York accent who sings her own verse in the song in an 80s bubblegum pop style, but with the same tone and message. And then finally Yamato, a dark and brooding boy with silver hair and excessive guy liner who sings a heavy metal verse of the song. Then all three of them come together, blending the three musical genres into the melody of Kukino's country song. Once that's over, the trio start collecting materials to build a raft, have some practice battles with some other kids. It's all very comedic and yet very real. We're making fun of these events, but at the same time, the audience is invested in Kukino and his friends and his world, and I'm quoting directly from my blog for most of this summary. I guess this cartoon has taken the place of RPAC as the one I care the least about. The focus then shifts elsewhere to the castle of King Moisha, where the duck-like native who works as the court magician, Cal Anka, discovers a letter from the king and rushes off to tell guard captain Dingo about it. So from there, the original idea was for a series with 10 volumes, each volume corresponding to a game in the Kingdom Hearts series. But Keys and Kingdoms cartoon will diverge more and more with the plot of Kingdom Hearts as time goes on, involving basically the same characters, locations, and timeline, just going nuts with the plot more and more with each season, all the while making fun of Kingdom Hearts with music and silliness, taking advantage of Kingdom Hearts' concept in a better, smarter way than the series itself ever has, and introducing people to the Keys and Kingdoms universe with every Kingdom Hearts concept reframed to fit that universe. The Secrets of Droon, Book 5, The Great Ice Battle, by Tony Abbott, illustrated by Tim Jessel. When I first made the decision that I was going to rediscover Droon and buy every book in the series, this was the first book I got my hands on. I'm fond of it, perhaps for that reason and that reason only, or maybe because it's a really good book. It's 87 pages long, and the last book in the series to be released in the series' first year of publication, 1999. 1. Daymare. Eric wakes up feeling cold and bundles himself up, vividly recalling Spar's words about ice and how Eric would help him. Eric's dad makes his first appearance in the series, telling him that Neil and Julie are waiting for him outside. Eric goes outside and finds it's a sunny summer day. He's not sure why he thought it would be cold. He keeps having visions of Spar, and eventually realizes this must be a dream summoning them to Droon. Neil gripes about how he won't be able to show off his new screwball. This will be important later. The rainbow stairs take them into a dark cave where they get chased by something with glowing red eyes. Right into it, eh? 2. City of Light. They run out of the cave and find they're in Jaffa City, the capital of Droon, where Princess Kia and King Zello are waiting for them. The cave turns out to be the home of the Red Wolves of Droon, guardians of Jaffa City, who the kids never get a good look at as they retreat back into the cave. Zello provides some exposition for those of us whose first book was Book 5, and then Galen and Max teleport in to announce that a curse from Spar is making its way toward Jaffa City, a blizzard which blots out the sun and freezes the entire city. 3. White Snow, Dark Magic. Nice chapter title. I suck at chapter titles. Usually I don't even bother with them. So this turns out to be Spar's plan, a curse that envelops Jaffa City and the surrounding villages in ice. Did he get the idea from Quill's writings? How very paradoxical. I love it. Max spins coats and boots from his spider silk for the kids, the warmest fabric in Droon, and King Zello takes a Pilka-drawn sled out to the villages to help them out. The Droonians assure the kids that this curse means nothing. Spar still can't just show up in Jaffa City with his army because an evil soul can't enter Jaffa City unless they are invited. Not 2 pages later, Eric sees the little boy trapped in the snow outside and lets him into the city. The little boy smiles and says, "I told you that you would help me." Dun dun dun! 4. A party of evil dudes. Naturally, the boy transforms back into Lord Spar. Eric runs away and tells Galen. Galen and the king's soldiers run to the gate and battle Spar, but Spar prevails, freezing Galen and the guards solid. Galen's last words are, "So cold." Spar even freezes the still unseen Red Wolves and invites 20 Nins through the city gates, ordering one group to find the Amulet of Zor, others to take Galen to the throne room, and the rest to find the children. The children flee to the marketplace. 5. The Gift of Magic. In the marketplace, all the men, women, and children of Jaffa City are frozen. The kids dunk their faces in a sugar barrel and pretend to be frozen as well, which gets the Nins off their backs. Once the Nins leave, the White Falcon appears, and for the first time, Queen Relna is able to speak to Kia. The Queen casts a spell on the sugar to give Kia the power to unfreeze everyone. 6. The Red Wolves of Droon. Thinking they need backup, Kia leads the kids to the caves to unfreeze the wolves. Kia explains that long ago, a giant called Zor fought the wolves who lived in these hills, but Queen Relna defeated Zor, and the wolves promised to guard the amulet that gave Zor his power. Kia unfreezes the 3 wolves. Yeah, there's only 3 of them. For some reason, that surprises me every time I read this book. And they prepare to face Spar. 7. A Royal Wizard. They make their way to the throne room, where Spar sits on Zello's throne, and the Nins are bringing forth the Amulet of Zor. As Spar works some magic to find out where Zor is entombed, Kia bursts forth to fight him alongside Max and the wolves, sending the 3 Upperworld kids to find the king and bring him back. 8. Race Against Time. Eric, Julie, and Neil ride on Pilkas out in the snowy wilderness. They finally find King Zello, who is leading an army of refugees, mostly children. They decide to fight the Nins with snowballs and slingshots. Sure, you're going to fight armored, sword-wielding warriors with snowballs and slingshots. Whatever, it's for kids. Kid power, yay! Again, it draws out my skepticism a bit. I'm not a very cynical person, but if reality were to ensue, this army would get themselves sliced to bits by Nins. I'm just saying. I suppose it's better than when they fight Nins with spoons and meatballs, but, well, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. 9. Droonians Unite. With Zello's club, the wolves, Kia's magic, Max's silk, and lots of snowballs, thrown with Neil's screwball, thank you, Mr. Chekhov, the kids fight their way to the throne room, but a Nin arrow takes out Kia's pouch where she was holding the magic sugar. Spar's spell is finally finished, and he discovers Zor's location, the Dust Hills of Panjabar. Kia duels Spar and wins, causing Spar to flee, but Kia despairs that she won't be able to save Galen, that he'll be frozen forever. 10. Reverse the Curse. Queen Relna returns, and there's a beautiful moment where Zello beholds the falcon and says, "I have missed you." It's just really great little moments like that in this saga. I like the "so cold" moment as well. Relna explains that soon the curse will change her into another form, but tells Kia, "You are the magic." Neil realizes that the magic sugar was never magic. It worked because Kia is magic. So Kia takes a handful of snow and successfully revives Galen, and then with a single spell brings spring back to Jaffa City. The rainbow stairs appear, and the 3 kids ascend them, to a huge standing ovation from the Droonians below. So this book was excellent, very dramatic and emotional and fun, and that's all I've got to say. I'm still not a critic, but it's a step up from the previous books. It's really good. Adaptation. Well, since we're at this book, which, as I mentioned, I'm fond of, and it's the good one, and it's the first one in my current set that I came to own, I have 2 thoughts before I begin adapting the actual events of the book. 1, musical numbers. There should be 1 musical number per book. I like shows that occasionally have musical numbers. I don't have any ideas for any such numbers, but it's an idea. Then there's the method of casting minor characters, such as Nins. As I mentioned earlier, if the show was live action, they'd be played by a combination of the on-staff puppeteers and guest actors, but if this were an animated series, the minor roles would be played by whatever voice actors are already handy in the episode. So any episode in which Khan appears, Jim Cummings will probably play the minor roles. Any episode with King Zello, Brad Garrett might have a few, and in episodes with no guest stars, just the 7 main characters, minor characters would be played by me and Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill and me. I like the sound of that. Plus whoever we get to play Max. I don't know who that'll be. You can't really replace Vern Troyer. Well, they did replace Vern Troyer once. Why didn't Vern Troyer play Griphook in Deathly Hallows? Is it because he's not really British? That's not fair. Okay, anyway. First thing, as I said, first literary appearance of Eric's dad, though in the TV series we might find an excuse to debut him a bit earlier. And Mr. Hinkle should be played by Daniel Radcliffe. Yes, that would just be perfect. Heck, the guest star list every episode he appears in would have to end with "and Daniel Radcliffe as Mr. Hinkle." He'd probably need a bit of makeup to look a bit older, and Eric's dad always wears red and blue plaid shirts. I think it'd be really cool and meta to get Dan in the role of the dad. This is not the first time Jaffa City has been seen, but it is the first book to be set within the city, so sets for the courtyard and castle and marketplace and stuff. I'm still not a set designer. Let's move on. The little boy that Spar transforms himself into to be played by some little boy. I don't know. Or, I guess, like, Julie's voice actress, if it's animated. So we get a good look at the White Falcon for the first time. Again, puppet. And Queen Relna has her first speaking part. She should be voiced by Grey Delisle Griffin. Just seems like a no-brainer. Regal, queenly. That was redundant. The wolves, indeed, as in the book, ought to remain unseen for a while. And then we finally see them. I'm thinking stop motion. I'm glad I had that idea at the last minute, because quadrupedal puppets just don't seem like they'd be convincing. But stop motion would look pretty cool. And there we have it. This was a really excellent book, and I'm excited to continue, because the series does get pretty exciting from this point on. I'm really eager to get into the next few books. As we enter the Keys and Kingdoms segment, I realized while editing last week's podcast that I must have skipped a whole paragraph of my notes, because I said there were 3 categories of dragon, described one of them, and then moved on. So, yeah, the other 2 types of dragons are the metallic dragons and the planar dragons. The metallic dragons are sort of the good counterpart to the chromatic dragons. They're nice to people and very wise. There are the brass dragons, who live in deserts and breathe fire. And I don't know the rest. They're not as iconic as the chromatic dragons, but I think the main 5, weakest to strongest, are brass, bronze, copper, silver, and gold. Maybe. Just maybe. I'm guessing. And, you know, just as any color you can think of might be an extra breed of chromatic dragon, any metal you can think of might be a kind of metallic dragon. And then the planar dragons are dragons from other worlds, and they come in every variety imaginable, whatever you can think of that connects them to their plane of origin. Yeah. So this week we're doing Bambi. Not much to say about this flick going in, so let's watch it. After which I'll talk about the movie, give my final thoughts on Disney's golden age of films, and finally talk about where I've gotten so far in assembling an actual Keys and Kingdoms game book. So, back in a moment. And we're back. I'm here with Arami.
Hi.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Sounded depressed. Okay. Okay, so Bambi. No plot, really. Just lots of cute scenes with the occasional devastating scene. Yeah. And so we were searching the credits for, like, names that would mean something to us. One name I saw was Ralph Wright, who I know he was, like, a scriptwriter, and he was also the original voice of Eeyore.
Eeyore.
Yep. And, of course, there was Frank and Ollie. Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. They were the part of the crew that Disney called the 9 Old Men, who worked on films from the beginning up to Peter Pan or so, I think, was the last film that all 9 of them actually worked on. And Frank and Ollie were the most famous of them all, and also the longest lived, perhaps for, you know, similar reasons. I don't know. Maybe they only became famous because they were still alive and they, like, taught classes and stuff, or maybe it was just a coincidence, I don't know. But anyway, their last project was The Incredibles, where they were the voices of the 2 old men who were like, yeah, that's the way to do it, that's old school. So, but before that, long before that, they were brilliant, famous animators who coined, like, the rules of acting and mime in animation. So, you know, I hate to keep harping on about water effects, but that's just something that Araby's definitely noticed. You know, they, all the films since Snow White had just brilliant water effects that just haven't been topped since then, but then this film whipped them out really nicely. And here's a question. Why do Disney chipmunks have deer tails? A real chipmunk has a tail not unlike that of a squirrel. So why do Disney chipmunks always have like the little tails like a deer tail?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all puffy.
Yeah, it's a little tuft.
I feel like it would look better, honestly.
I guess it does.
It makes them look like less like a squirrel, more like a chipmunk.
Yeah, to distinguish them. So every animal that appears in the film, I've already, prepared to appear in Keys and Kingdoms, and I've kind of prepared a list there. And the movie's just kind of about animal culture. It's about real animals with real animal problems, and what they'd think about that if they were more intelligent. And that's very nicely done. Apparently, people really hated this movie when it came out for that reason, but I think we can appreciate it better. I'm gonna take that away from you now.
No, don't lie.
Okay, you can keep playing with your slime. Okay.
It's not slime.
Okay. Anyway, the thunderstorm scene got me thinking about, rain and weather in general and the effects it would have in a Keys and Kingdoms campaign. That's something that gets overlooked sometimes, but I think there's something in some Dungeon Master's guides about it that I can crib. Here's something I like to think about that I've been thinking about since the last time I saw this movie, which was, it must have been a couple years ago because I saw it with Grandma, and she passed away some time ago. So, anyway, last time I saw this movie, I got to thinking about the Great Prince's credentials. They call him the Great Prince because not of all the deer in the forest, not one has lived half as long. So, basically, he gets to be the prince because he's the equivalent of 200 years old. And he's still in really good shape and very handsome for a guy twice as old as anyone else in his community. Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. And he's still alive at the end of the movie, so how old must he be?
Like,
pretty crazy old.
God, like 700 years old or something.
So the Mickey Mousing was really turned up in this movie. Just like every single musical note has a corresponding action on screen.
There's also tons of music in general.
Yeah. Hello, Zia. She
She
just came in and gave us noogies. That's good.
Yay, wow.
Okay. And so turn up, especially the percussion. Every note and every beat of the percussion, something happens on screen to correspond to it, and I think that's really brilliant. I wish movies still did that, So Aramy here, she didn't know the one thing everybody knows about this movie. She suspected that someone would die, but she thought it'd be the Great Prince. She didn't think it'd be the mother.
Yeah, I forgot. I haven't watched it in forever.
Yeah. And, I never noticed young Bambi has a southern accent.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I never noticed that before, but you can kind of tell he's like, Mother, what's all that white stuff?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Doesn't Walt Disney have a southern accent?
Walt Disney was from Missouri, so he had kind of a southern accent, so maybe that's why he picked that kid to play Bambi. Yeah.
He was still alive, I forgot.
Yeah. With Disney, he died in 66.
Oh.
So he would have been very much alive when this movie came out. Yeah.
Almost when my mom was born,
Almost, yeah. And so the man leitmotif, the little piece of music that plays whenever the humans are about to show up, the da-na-na, da-na-na. I remember that theme just scaring the hell out of me when I was a little kid, but it kind of pumped me up at the same time. Just 3 notes can really jazz you up. Okay. And, the second half of the movie, no one ever talks about the second half. Everyone remembers all the frolicking and stuff in the first half of the movie with young Bambi, but in the second half of the movie, he grows up and he's an adult and he deals with stuff. And I like that half of the movie.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it in a Kingdom Hearts game.
Yeah.
Sterling Holloway played adult Flower, which surprised me because I guess the guy doesn't have to sound like Winnie the Pooh all the time. I guess he can have a pretty normal sounding voice, even though he sounds like Winnie the Pooh most of the time and certainly most of his roles. What I noticed about adult Bambi is that his acting is very much the same as his young self. not so much his voice acting, but his facial and body language. You could just definitely tell it's the same character, even though they don't look much alike. And so that was pretty.
I mean, the face was kind of alike, don't you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the adult deer in this movie have pretty realistic faces, and as opposed to the young deer look more like G4 My Little Ponies, kinda.
Wait, what?
G4 is the current generation of My Little Ponies. Don't look much like horses. They look more like the deer from Bambi.
Yeah.
And so I forgot that Bambi actually gets shot at one point in the film. He gets shot, and his dad has to urge him to get up to shake it off. That's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, Papa.
And you know what I noticed? This film has very little dialogue, to the point that it's never actually explicitly stated that the Great Prince is Bambi's father.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's pretty obvious because everyone calls Bambi the young prince, but all the same, it's never said outright. So that's just really interesting. You know, this movie doesn't say anything that it doesn't absolutely have to. It just leaves most of it to the visuals and the atmosphere. And final note, I had forgotten that Flower names his kid Bambi. That is so friggin' adorable.
What if Flower's actual name is?
Flower, yeah, you know, he might not have had one. The Bambi calling him Flower might have been the first time anyone gave him a name.
Yeah, maybe. Actually, that's a good theory.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, that might actually be like a good theory.
Yeah, it might be the case. So our final thoughts on Disney's Golden Age. What did you think, Jeremy?
I think it was a good age. But like they're kind of messy and short, but they weren't like the best of the best, I feel like. But they were still pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good way to putting it, that they were kind of messy. They were very experimental, as you also
Fantasia.
said. Yeah, especially Fantasia, very experimental. And but you know, still they paved the way for what Disney would be in the future. You know, I mean, they were finding their identity, and they definitely found it. Maybe in 1950 or so they found it, but with these first three films from 37 to 42, they really paved it.
Yeah, it was good. They paved the road to success.
So I've got a list here of the next 7 films on the list. The Package Era. Have you seen any of these films?
Seen half of this, as I told you.
Right, yes, that's true. We've both seen the Legend of Sleepy Hollow half of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Yeah.
So I have bought all of the Package Era films.
Otherwise, that's it. I haven't seen any of the other ones. Maybe, I feel like I've seen that. I feel like I have.
Saludos Amigos?
Yeah.
Maybe. I haven't seen that one. It's a pretty short one. Apparently, it's only 40 minutes long.
No.
So but we'll watch. Yeah, next week we'll watch Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros, even though they didn't come out in the same.
Oh no, that's the one I saw. I've seen that.
Caballeros, yeah, me too. Yeah, so they didn't come out in the same calendar year, but they are very closely linked. And Saludos Amigos is too short to be a feeture, so we'll watch both.
Is this when they were like celebrating Spanish culture?
Latin American. Yeah, Latin America, like Brazil and Mexico. And Argentina, maybe? I don't know.
No, maybe.
I think, well, I know that the other two caballeros are Brazilian and Mexican, respectively. So, I might as well talk about the Package Era now. You know, just number 7 through 13 on my list. Disney wasn't really making features during this time. They couldn't afford to, because World War II was a thing that was going on. So they couldn't really make animated features. They just packaged collections of short films and released those as features. And the first two were Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros, which were sort of propaganda pieces to promote brotherhood between the United States and Latin America. I'm not using propaganda in a bad way. That's just what they were. And, I really enjoy The Three Caballeros as characters. So it'll be fun to see their origins. And, a little bit of brotherhood between the U.S. and Latin America is kind of what the world needs right about now. Now that we're building the wall or whatever. That was a terrible Trump. You do a better Trump than I do.
I know, right? That was bad. I can do a better one.
Yeah.
What? What's wrong with me?
I don't know. Okay.
Oh well.
Anyway.
We're gonna build a wall. It's gonna be amazing.
That
That was a better one.
was pretty good. It's a bit more Bronx than the real Trump, but okay.
Oh well.
But it was very good. For a 10-year-old girl, you do a brilliant Donald Trump. Let's just put it that way. Okay. All right, let's take a little break. Okay, I'm recording again. I thought about getting Zia and Mom in here to see what they think of the Golden Age, but let's not rub it in their faces that we've been watching these films, shall we?
Yeah, when I tell her I'm gonna watch The Sound of Music with her, she with Sage, she got so sad. She wanted to watch it.
Oh, hi Zia.
Hi.
Hi. So you heard that, did you?
I heard my name.
Okay. Come here a second. Okay.
All right.
What do you think of the Golden Age?
Good age.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. That's all we needed. See you later.
Leave now.
Okay.
Wow.
Go away.
I'm taking her with me.
No, please no.
Okay, that works out.
Help me. No. Help me.
Never mind.
All right. So, you can go on your way. I was gonna finish up the outro here.
Oh my god, that's so gross.
Something happened with your slime there? Okay.
No. It's just like those holes, so that bothers you.
Yeah. Quit
fine, sorry.
making lots of little teeny tiny holes in your slime. Yeah. Who isn't terrified by that? Is it just me? Lots of little tiny holes in something?
Yeah, sorry, it's kind of just you.
Okay.
It's not a weird thing though, it's a normal thing. It's a problem.
Anyway, well, that padded this out to longer than a half an hour. Okay. Regarding the actual Keys and Kingdoms game books, last week I made a concentrated effort to actually get into work producing a bestiary, a list of creatures that exist in the universe and what their stats might be. I started with a list of animals I wanted to exist in my previous fantasy RPG universe, crystals, which I might end up ultimately merging with Keys and Kingdoms, which kind of changes Keys and Kingdoms' identity a little bit, but not too much. I mean, it's just stories that I wanted to tell on crystals. I can rearrange the stories to be told in Keys and Kingdoms, and that might be lasting. So I took that list of animals, and I divided it neatly in half, those that are important enough to be in the main rulebook, and those that can be added later on in expansion packs. So now I know of at least 200 creatures that exist in Keys and Kingdoms and what level they are, so that's good. By level, I mean hit dice. But I'm pretty sure that level and hit dice are fundamentally identical. Why do they call them hit dice? Can't they just call it a level? Of course, in addition to level, every creature in 3E Pathfinder 5E has a challenge rating. A single creature with a challenge rating of 1 can go up against a party of level 1 adventurers who can also fight a group of creatures whose challenge rating is between 0 and 1. I'd rather keep it simpler than that. If you have 5 party members, they can fight 5 level 1 monsters. 1 level 5 monster, or some combination. And yeah, I think 20 level 1 players could stand a chance against a single level 20 monster. Not a very good chance, but perhaps a chance, Yeah, I guess I just want to keep my leveling up system a bit subtle, And hopefully there's enough balance between creatures with magic and creatures without that the level stat can be used as a barometer for their challenge rating. The list of animals ranges from assorted teeny tiny level 0 animals, such as small frogs, small birds, aquarium fish, normal insects and arachnids, bats, cats, foxes, small dog breeds, ferrets, tiny monkeys, rodents, and the smallest snakes and lizards, to the level 20 animals, the Tyrannosaurus and Megalodon. There, of course, should be creatures higher than level 20. After all, it's not very climactic if 5 level 20 players only fight other groups of 5. They need to fight a boss. And a boss to 5 level 20 characters, by the math of the system, would have to be level 100. I haven't thought this through, but a level 20 party needs their final boss. Well, in the 3rd edition Deities and Demigods supplement, the gods are all level 60-ish when you add up their hit dice, so maybe we can cap it off there and see how it works. Wait, now that I've got my list of animals, from there I'll pull up a list of the other creature types and work from there. So soon you'll get 20 levels worth of oozes, fae, dragons, what else is there? Constructs, monstrous humanoids, magical beasts, aberrations, outsiders. Yeah, I could probably name them all off the top of my head, but I'll stop there. That might even be all of them. Probably not. I am also studying the Deities and Demigods supplement, which handily takes the exact 3 pantheons I intend to use in K&K and adapts them for use in D&D, so I think I'll just use that exact list of gods they got. Before we sign off, I have a request for the listeners at home. If we were to play the first ever game of Keys and Kingdoms, which race and class would you choose, based solely on principle? I haven't worked out what the stats are, and that's not the important part, so here's the list of races. And the list of classes. And if you're listening to this, tell me what you choose. Next week we talk about Act 1, Scene 6 of Companions, in which the companions arrive at Silvery Moon, the 6th Team Salmon idea, a live-action series with animation in it known as Charlie the Trash Can, The Secrets of Droon Book 6, The Sleeping Giant of Gaul, and we begin the package era of Disney films, and hopefully I'll also have some more real Keys and Kingdoms material to talk about. See ya.